Welcome to the update section of the Bury My Heart with Tonawanda film. I am Christina Omega, one of the producers of the film. Today we are here with Wayne Abrams, who is one of the narrators for the film, and also the face that you see when you go to the promo shot. We are on the Tonawanda Indian Reservation, which is located in western New York. The Tonawanda Band of Seneca Indians is a federally recognized tribe and part of the Iroquois Confederacy. The reservation will be one of the sites where the film will be made. Wayne, tell us a little bit about the history of the Tonawanda Reservation. What distinguishes it from the Seneca Nation?
Historically speaking, this community of natives that live here were, I guess, established as more of a conquered people of the Senecas, which is why we don't, well, as of 5 years ago, we were still going by the Tonawanda Band of Senecas. We have now sort of changed it to the Tonawanda Seneca Nation.
Okay.
But that Band of Senecas refers to the domination of the Seneca people throughout history, throughout different tribes that they've actually overtaken and brought in. We were considered those people of Senecas that were brought in and turned into Seneca people. The Seneca people doing a very good job in establishing that we are to follow these ways now. And actually when it came time to that, making it so certain in our minds that that's how we had to live, that's how we actually, a lot of people have told me that that's how we actually made our stand, was that we were so formed to the thought that we had to hold up these ideals and these traditions so much that it made an influence to the people throughout the generations. So that when it came time for like Indian Removal Act, we made that stand to establish that this is where we were, this is our land, and that we're not going to leave. More historically, through Seneca Nation, because of the 3 reservations that encompass Seneca people, the way that we have established our Tonawanda Seneca Nation here, a story goes back to the time when the United States government was trying to establish their very own democratic form of government onto all people, all towns, villages. That's how it is today. Coming to these nations of Native Americans, they also tried to influence their democratic form of government. In that the Seneca people, who carry 8 titles of sachem chiefs, which are represented in the Grand Council of Chiefs, went to Washington to come to a resolution as to what was going to happen. Now in our way, we have this term which means that we're going to put it onto our pillow, the issue, so that we are to think about it and that we'll come back with a resolution. They used that when they went to Washington to establish maybe a democratic form of government. And they say, symbolically, we believe all of these 50 chiefs of the Grand Council symbolically have these horns upon their head. Symbolically, these horns, they said that they symbolically took these horns down from their heads and they hung them on the wall. And they said that they would come back with their answer, that they would either accept this new form of government or they will be carrying on their traditional form of government. A few years later, the only ones to actually come back and establish that we weren't going to adopt this new form of government were representatives from the Tonawanda Band of Senecas. So from that day forward, all of the titles were transferred to this one Seneca reservation. And now the Seneca Nation of Indians that was established after that, and they adopted the new form of government.
Now, I've been doing some research, and I also found that the Tonawanda Seneca Nation was very influential in the history of the United States and of the world in the form of Louis H. Morgan, an anthropologist came here in the 1800s, interviewed individuals from the Seneca Tonawanda Nation, as well as Eli S. Parker, and then wrote the League of the Haudenosaunee or Iroquois. This particular book is significant in that it was one of the major anthropological studies done in the 1800s of a society. And it was later read, and it influenced the thought of Karl Marx, Friedrich Engels, and Sigmund Freud. Not that we espouse these individuals, but their works did influence the history of the world. Could you comment at all about this fact of history and tell us a little bit about Eli S. Parker, who's one of the most famous people in American history from this particular reservation?
Eli Parker was born in a generation of people when the white man was coming to the reservations, and they were setting up not established schools, but English was starting to be actually taught to younger generations of children. He was the product of that, and that he was born into a native family, and he was brought up speaking the Seneca language. But at a young age, he was being taught English, and he had different teachers. And in fact, he was actually, I believe he was named after a teacher, I believe. Going more so, he was asked, because of his ability to read and write, he was asked by the Chief's Council to participate and actually help them in their relations with the United States government. Over time, he became very, very educated, still understanding the fundamental ideas of what it is to be a native man. Later on, because you hear in the history books of Eli Parker, they talk about how he was, I believe the one book is a warrior of two worlds. And he was in fact that. He could fight the fight, I guess, in either pair of shoes. Later on in life, he was established as a sachem chief. His actual title has a big significance within the 50 sachems of the Grand Council, and that his actual name means that he holds the door open, symbolically to issues that want to come through our Confederacy, to people that want to come through our Confederacy, people who want to travel through our lands. They still come through, that come from the West, will still go through, and the first person they see, symbolically, I guess, in our culture, the first person they see when they want to come travel through our land and issues that they want to bring to our people, symbolically goes through this man they call Donihokatwet. And like I said, that means that he's holding this door open. So that was a big issue that they had actually, and that goes all the way back to the beginning of Gainasat with the peacemaker, and that he had established this man as the doorkeeper, or as you see in some commercialized Seneca concepts, he is actually the keeper of the Western door, the actual keeper of the Western door. And over time, like I said, they've kind of commercialized things into saying that the whole Seneca Nation is keepers of the Western door. But there was actually in history really only two keepers of the Western door when it came to great law, and when they preach great law, they talk about two specific men who actually kept the Western door and were in charge of that.
Okay, and I wanted to say that the character of Eli S. Parker is in the film. He's written into the script. Is there a revival going on amongst the younger people in terms of learning the languages?
Yes, as I sit down and we go through different things, I've actually figured out that we're not that many generations separated from first language speakers. When I say first language speakers, I am referring to people who grew up knowing strictly just the Seneca language. I am actually the product of first language English speakers that come from the reservation. My mother was actually a first generation non-Seneca speaker. My grandfather was actually a fluent speaker, and he was involved in kind of the initial revitalization of the Seneca language, which happened in Cattaraugus. With that, they started to produce materials for people to learn. They produced many, hard copy books, a lot of recordings. But the recordings actually really started early on, around the 40s and 50s, was a lot of recordings. Also, going back to the turn of the century when they could record things, that's how early they actually started recording things, but not for the purposes of learning later on. It was more for the non-native people to actually take that part and to put it into museums, because there's a lot of museums that have audio songs, speeches, and things like that. For the purposes of learning, that's only happened with the last couple of decades with the Seneca people. And when I talk Seneca people, I refer to all three of the reservations that exist in Western New York. Right now, we do coordinate with each other amongst the Senecas as a language to be taught. It has become a very big kind of an explosion, I guess, within the last decade. With our school being established within the last 10 years. Right now we focus on traditional ideas and traditional concepts which happen within our longhouse. So those would custom ceremonies and speeches and things like that. That's the basis in which we try to revitalize our language, because unfortunately at this point in time, that is the only place that you'll hear our language being spoken. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to make a normal daily thing for everybody to be able to speak their language. So right now our language programs are, like I said, we have established one on every reservation, and people are always working on Seneca language. And the way I started out was actually in the situation of learning speeches. So I've gone through those speeches, and now I've gotten to a point where I try to actually use it in daily life and daily situations. Because at this point, in this day and age, right now, we have very, very, very few elders that speak the language anymore. As of right now, we have only three elders that are still able to teach language right now, that could actually teach somebody to, words and use of the language and things like that.
Can you say something for us in the original Seneca language?
Iwi diagnostani na od iwakaheonje nekaweno so nondawa ka I said that I'm not very stingy of the few words that I understand, but I'm thankful that for a lot of things that the old people have established to this point.
What made you interested in participating in this film?
It was mostly Gary. How he actually got me interested in it was he had asked me to take the script for this movie and pulled that one scene out where the Chiefs Council is deliberating over whether the boy can stay or not.
Yes.
And in that scene, I actually it was really nice. It was perfect timing, because at that time I was working with elders and for my benefit to learn language, to expand my knowledge. And when we sat down, historically speaking, I went to two members of the Wolf Clan, of which Ely Parker was a member of, and of which his title comes from the Wolf Clan. So they actually were kind of excited about working on this, and they're two fluent Seneca speakers. And I had a lot of fun in the storyline, even though it was just that one scene. I actually enjoyed what was actually the concept as to what was actually happening in it. And later on, after he had asked if I would participate in the film further than just, a voiceover or something like that, so I agreed to it.
Great. Well, we're happy to have Wayne Abrams in the film, and we're looking forward to seeing you act and to hear you speak. And we want to thank you very, very much for this interview, but also thank you for agreeing to be in the film. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.